So let's take a few minutes to look at the Siemens S7 1200 training station or demo that we will use in the lab. And when we come into the lab finally, this will be the first system that we will work with. It'll be the Siemens, again, the Siemens S7 1200 PLC. And it's going to use the TIA portal software, which will be installed on the computers sitting next to each one of these kind of blue training stations. So we have 14 of these units in the lab, I believe, and considering the COVID requirements, we're going to be spread out a little bit, but it's not a problem as we have a small group in the class, so we should have no problem spreading out and everybody still having their own station. So take a few minutes to just kind of get familiar with all the buttons and knobs and whatnot on the training station. And then there will be a second video that will show more about how to use the software. And of course, we're going to do the software piece in the lab, so we're going to go over that. Especially that first night, we get familiar with the software. And then as we continue to move on in the labs, we'll just do more and more programming exercises. So every box is essentially identical. There are a few variations in the catalog numbers between stations. So this is the actual PLC right here. This gray kind of rectangular squarish device at the bottom is the Siemens PLC, the S7 1200. And laser etched on the front is the model and some information. And I believe if you take this door down, so this top piece is just a simple little hinged panel that you can kind of swing down. There's also a hinged panel at the bottom here that you can swing up. And I believe if you were to open one of these two panels, the full catalog number of the unit will be displayed. So all of the PLCs in the lab are Siemens S7 1200 1214 DC DC DC, I believe. So they're all, yeah, actually it's on this label right here. So on the white label is the model number, but what sets them apart possibly is, do you have the version AG40 or the AG32? So as you get to the stations, that'll become relevant and important as you actually try to go create your project inside of TIA Portal. But you have to make sure you tell it the exact model that you have. So let's just look at some of the basic functions. First off is the main power. So as you come to your station, the main power switch could be turned off, so you want to turn it on. When you turn it on, that'll take the PLC a few moments to get booted up, just like any computer. It takes a few moments for it to go through its boot sequence. And then once you see all the lights go green here, especially the OK light, then you know that the PLC is up and running and ready to go. Another thing we'll have to do is actually press this control power button to on. Just got to do that once you power up the main unit. And for whatever reason inside the box, the control power that powers up all these lights is not on until you actually hit this green button and energize it. There is an emergency stop. For some reason, if you had to shut the system down quickly, you could hit that emergency stop push button, and that'll kind of kill power. You could also just flip that switch, so it's a little redundant to have that big button there. But if for any reason something's going haywire and you don't feel comfortable, you can hit the e-stop or turn power off to the system. So we see some cables coming in here, some Ethernet cables, and this device that's kind of to the left side of the PLC is actually nothing more than an Ethernet switch, so, or a hub or a switch. So this is not actually anything that's connected to or tethered to the PLC itself. This is a completely separate isolated component Ethernet switch. So the computer is sitting, off to the side. It is connected to the PLC through Ethernet connection to the switch, and then from the switch connects an Ethernet cord to the PLC, and there's a third cord which will be connected to this touchscreen panel above it. And you can't see that connection because it's behind the panel, but you can see this connection from the PLC Ethernet port to the switch. If for some reason you had brought your own laptop and your own laptop had this TIA software on it, you could actually plug your laptop right into one of these extra ports and get connected right into this little network and get, connect to the PLC and do some maintenance and troubleshooting to it. So there is a touch screen in the unit, and we're not going to really use the touch screen, at least not this touch screen and not in these labs. We will do the touchscreen programming, but it's going to be when we get to the Allen Bradley stuff, the panel views. And then as we get to the right-hand side of the box, we have all these kind of interface points. So we'll actually use these buttons and switches and these LED indicators with the PLC. So all of these items here are actually wired to the PLC itself. So we have the S7-1200 has inputs, discrete inputs on the top row, discrete outputs on the bottom row. So every one of these push buttons and switches are a discrete input. So they're all wired to the top. And then every one of these LEDs are outputs. They're wired to the outputs on the bottom. And they're labeled. So PB1, PB2, PB3 refers to input 1, 2, 3. And they also label on the side here DI0, DI1, DI2. So recall that we're always offset because we start with 0, and a lot of different PLCs start with the reference points of 0. So PB1 for push button, PB for push button, PB1 or input 1 is actually tied to DI0. PB2 tied to DI1. Same thing applies with our lights. We have DO0, DO1, so DO for discrete output, DO3 for etc. on down. So if we wanted to turn on this light here, this DO3 LED, we would program this PLC and we would program the PLC to connect to that address that is associated with that output of the PLC. And again, we're going to do that in the class, so that we'll get there and show you how to do that. There is an analog input on these PLCs, and there's one analog input wired. I think there's two analog inputs available. We only have one wired, and it is actually wired to this potentiometer. So we have a little potentiometer here that we'll be able to kind of turn to the left or turn to the right, clockwise or counterclockwise, and that'll change the voltage signal that goes to the analog input. So although we've been talking throughout that typically our analog inputs are 4 to 20 milliamps, in this demo kit, since it's a potentiometer, we're going to use the 0 to 10 volt DC, the voltage analog input reference versus a current analog input reference. It makes no difference as far as the PLC is concerned, as far as how we're going to use the number, scale it, and reference it in the program, just that it's physically a voltage coming in versus a 4 to 20 milliamp. But one advantage of that is we'll be able to actually take our fluke meters that we have in the lab and we can connect them to these actual test points that are available, and we can actually watch what the voltage reading is on the potentiometer, and then we can watch it, match it up to the actual reading inside the PLC. So it's just be a nice way to kind of show you that, what the actual signal is coming from the transmitter, quote unquote transmitter, the potentiometer is from the field, and then what you actually see inside the PLC as its reference. And then we have a bunch of stuff over here to the far right that we're really not going to use in these labs, most likely. So there's some contactors and some temperature points and some motor control and stepper motors. So depending, we possibly could use some of these things, but we're probably not going to get to that. The other thing is there's a yellow piece of tape up here, and this switch, there's applications in an enable or disable position. So every station has a little yellow piece of tape that says make sure that the switch is in the disable position, I believe. I could be wrong with that, but we'll just read that tape and make sure the switch is in the right spot. And I believe that has something to do with what happens over here with these kind of lab pieces on the right hand side. Okay, so that's about the quick and dirty on the station. You'll get hands on it, and it becomes a little more intuitive at that point.